Hi, good morning. This is On Imagination with the Healing Garden. And I'm going to take a minute to talk about arrogance. And thank you so much for joining me with Shifting Perspectives. Arrogance. This is an emotion where I keep coming up to, and I can feel it. This is how it feels like on my inside. So I'll be sitting there and I'll be reflecting and I'll be thinking. And I've got some extraordinary ideas. I know they're extraordinaries. And I'll start talking about them. And then I will hit this wall of, oh, you're sounding arrogant. You need to pull that back. So I will self-censor and then pull back. This happened a lot very early on. And I was going self-check. Are you too arrogant? Self-check. Are you too arrogant? And I can still feel myself doing this, where I'll get into it and I'll start talking about the work I do. And then I have people going, you know, the work you're doing is astounding. Yes, I know the work that I'm doing is amazing. I'm well aware of, I know the perspective. And then I've got other people who are going, oh, well, you really need to learn to be humble. You're so arrogant. And I'm looking at it going, humble. Is there a crime in knowing what I'm doing here? Am I supposed to be consciously unaware of the magnitude of what I'm talking about? Really, philosophically, all psychology aside, let's sit down and look at that. Am I supposed to be consciously unaware? Am I supposed to be ignorant of the magnitude of what I'm saying here? Really? And then I started to reflect on who calls people arrogant. Fourth perspectives, it's a label. It's a name. And anytime you hear the name arrogant, it's actually a fourth perspective telling you that you should not be awesome because they're insecure. Well, boom, we call that a projection. But it's a subtle one. The name arrogance is a very subtle one. I went on to the Burning Man community. I was so excited. I love supporting Burning Man. They're at Burning Man right now, but I can't go. I can't go because it is against my ethic because of the water crisis. Now, this is my very personal ethic, my very personal belief. It has nothing to do with anybody else. So I went out there and I introduced myself. I said, hi, and the question always comes up. Are you a burner? Have you ever been to the Big Burn? And it always comes back to, no, I am not a burner, or I have never been to the Big Burn. And then comes the follow-up question. Well, why not? You should go. And my response is always the same. I have a problem with the water crisis out there. So it is against my ethic to go out there. So on this particular post, I thought I would bypass all of that and just summarize by saying, I'm Anna, I'm a burner, I've never been to the Big Burn because I have an ethic with the water crisis. So I just stay at home and go, yay, I love you guys, I support you, show me your stuff. I live vicariously through you. And one woman came back and said, wow, you're arrogant, you could be humble. And I saw it. She felt guilty. So she projected her guilt onto me by calling me arrogant. And then I had two more people go, yep, that's right. And I went, look at that. They're self-projecting. They are projecting. And I said to her, am I not allowed to talk about my ethics? She goes, yes, but you're flouting it. Flouting? You, and I told her this, are projecting. Which is a boundary, which is when I said, you keep your shit off of me. I'm just being me. I said, I'm a stranger. I said, you don't know anything about me. But you've already made all of these assessments about me without even knowing anything about me because you have your insecurities. Whenever someone uses the word arrogance or uses the word humble or humility as a weapon to keep you in check, do you hear what I'm saying? It's subtle, right? It's subtle. And it is a very common abuse. So now we grow up with this deep, it's one of the oldest conditionings that we have as children, that arrogance is bad. But let's really get comfortable with arrogance and explore it for a little bit. The people who have a problem with arrogance are people who project their insecurities onto others. Usually, and my father comes to mind, usually a fourth perspective who is so insecure with their own ability to lay their own boundary that they project onto other people. Why aren't we allowed to talk about our wins? Why aren't we allowed? Why aren't we allowed to talk about our victories? Because somebody else has an idea of, oh, you can't make other perspectives look bad. Look bad? Why does my success make you look bad? Why does my win make you look incompetent? It doesn't, to be honest. That's comparison. They are now comparing their perspective to my perspective. You cannot compare perspectives from each perspective to another. You cannot. This is where arrogance is a red flag for comparison taking place. That's all it is. Arrogance is comparison in disguise. Moment. Arrogance is absolutely comparison in disguise. It is projecting. It is perspective abuse. So here I am talking about how awesome I am. And I've got other people who are, it's interesting to see all the colors and all the perspectives. Some people telling me I'm arrogant. Some people asking me, do you know what you are doing? Well, let me ask you something. Which perspective are you? Because if you're in the fourth perspective, I'm not supposed to acknowledge it. But if you're in the fifth perspective, I can talk about it a little bit. If you're in the sixth perspective, I can take pride in my work. And if you are in the seventh perspective, then I can totally just open up and talk about my work. So which perspective are you? Because I want to know how abused I'm going to be. And I'm at a point where that's how I converse with people. Which perspective are you? I want to know exactly how abused I'm going to be. So why are ninth perspectives holding themselves back with self-preservation, with self-censoring to preserve? Arrogance is a rule. It is not an ethic. Arrogance is a rule that fourth perspectives use to make sure they don't look bad so no one notices how little they're not growing. Because they are comparing. So no, arrogance does not exist. Selfish does not exist. That's another one of those rules where they throw at you and they tell you you have to obey to make sure that no one makes them look bad. Because if you suddenly look good, someone might notice that they look bad. Selfish and arrogance, get rid of those words. They do not belong in our vernacular. I'm going to write a list of this. This is going to be like a list of words that should not be in our vernacular. They need to go away. So I'm going to go on my website and I'm going to print a page, and it's going to be a list of words that we just should not be using anymore, because these words are what I call sloppy language. And that is what this page is going to be called. Sloppy language. Sloppy language gets you sloppy results. And these are restrictive projections and perspective abuse that we are not aware of. And that is maternal or paternal. That is a projection. I know how to spell paternal. Feminine and masculine. Those are projections. Selfish is a projection. Arrogance is a projection. Those words literally only exist in a giving status, in a name-calling status. They are literally name-calling in disguise. Yeah, in disguise. I want to say the blamer. Yeah, the blamer. Don't be a blamer. We're going to start using the word blamer. The blamer projects their own insecurities onto a different perspective. I like the feeling of all of this. And same thing with arrogance. Materialistic, that's another one. Materialistic. That one is another huge one that is constantly being used. And the other one is crazy or insane. Stupid, that's another word. That is name calling in disguise. The blamer projects their own insecurities or misunderstandings. Misunderstandings onto a different perspective. And it is the belief that because I do not understand you, you should not be different. Or you should not do that. Literally, because I do not understand you, you should not do that. That is literally what they are saying. And that is when you have a blamer. So if you have a blamer, by the way, a blamer is a narcissist. Blamers are narcissists who have not learned tolerance. That's it. There's a lot of people out there who have not learned tolerance. And as a result, they make a lot of demands on those who have learned tolerance. So the people who are intolerant abuse the people who are tolerant. And we let them. We accommodate it. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be selfish. Oh, I'm sorry. I did. Every time you say I'm sorry, you are apologizing to somebody who is intolerant. Oh, I have a lot to say on the words. I'm sorry. Oh, do I? I am sorry is perspective abuse. Let me rephrase that. People who say I'm sorry are people who suffered from perspective abuse. I got to do a video on this. I'm going to build it right now. As I'm talking to you, I'm going to build this video. When you use the word, I am sorry, why did that pop up? I don't want that to pop up. When you use the words, I am sorry, you are 100% accepting somebody else's perspective abuse. You are saying, it's okay. You can abuse me. Literally. Every time you say, I'm sorry, you are going, hey, it's okay. You can abuse me. No, please, please, please abuse me. I remember this one post I read on Reddit. This man was explaining how only in Britain he's British, and he was explaining how being in Britain, how they are, where they'll apologize for anything. And he says, I remember this one time, this man walked up to me with a gun and mugged me. And this is how the mugging went. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I can't hold a gun because I'm sorry. Pretend this is a gun. This is about as close as I can get to this. He says, I'm sorry. I need the money. Could you please? And the man said, oh yeah, I'm sorry. And he pulls out his wallet and he hands it to the man with the gun. And the man goes, I'm sorry. Thank you. And he takes out the money and he hands him back the wallet and he says, I'm sorry. Thank you. And the man takes his wallet back and says, no, it's okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's how Brits rob each other. According to this man on Reddit, who's a Brit and who is depicting this situation. You apologize. You say, I'm sorry, because you have been so abused. God forbid you have a different perspective. God forbid you have a different perspective other than your abusers. So you say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I exist. I know I shouldn't have a perspective that's different than yours. I'm sorry. Did I offend you? Stop enabling their abuse. You are apologizing to them for not abusing you. That's why we apologize. Next time you open your mouth and you say, I'm sorry, think about it. You just told that person, it's okay to abuse me. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, use a boundary. Use a boundary. Every time you say, I'm sorry, you should be using a boundary. So how many I'm sorries do you say every day? Because every time you say, I'm sorry, they have projected their abuse onto you. And you say, I'm sorry. What you should be doing is saying, excuse you. Leave my perspective alone. You do not get to tell me what my perspective is. Keep your perspective off of my perspective, please. That is what you should be doing. Instead, we say, I'm sorry. And we button our mouths and we tighten up and we close down and we keep our perspective. We have internalized their projection. And we have taught the narcissist that they can do it again. I have something called Curing the Narcissistic Pandemic. You need to take a look at it. I explain all of this and I break it down. And I explain, and I actually am doing a whole thing. It's free, where I just teach people how to communicate, how to set a boundary, and how, by setting the boundary, you end narcissism. But by saying, I'm sorry, you enable the narcissism. Yes, please abuse me. Every time you say, I'm sorry, you're actually saying, please abuse me. Oh, no, 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 no. It's my honor. Please abuse me. So if somebody says you're arrogant, no, I was told distasteful. I was told that I was distasteful today. Distasteful? No. He projected his bullshit onto me. No, it's not distasteful. It's honest. You are too sensitive. Oh, that's a projection. By me saying to somebody that they are too sensitive, now that's a projection. Now that's me needing my boundary to keep me from projecting onto other people. Which is why you should not use the words, you should, or you do. And I know I say it all the time on these. I know I do. I know I do. When you are talking one-on-one to somebody, and you are doing it in a way to literally enforce your perspective onto other people. In a non-learning environment, that's the difference. If you're here to learn, then it's fine. Because you're open to the perspective change. And I'm open to sharing the perspective difference with you. But when you're not in that kind of a setting and you're talking about perspectives or you're talking about ideas or whatever it is, you're always talking about perspectives. And then you start arguing with somebody else, or they start arguing with you about what your projection should be, or what your idea should be, what your perspective should be. Are you projecting? Are you internalizing? I need to do a whole video just on internalizing and projecting. I really do. So I have this page started and I absolutely love it. It's sloppy language. Sloppy language gets you sloppy results. Restrictive projections and perspective abuse that we are not aware of. And then there's maternal, paternal, feminine, masculine. Because I do not understand you, you should not do that. Blamers are narcissists who have not learned tolerance. So they expect everybody to accommodate their intolerance. So they expect, yeah, that's it, everybody else to accommodate their intolerance. I'm sorry means please abuse me. Yeah, literally, please abuse me. So every time you hear the words, I'm sorry, come out of your mouth, that is a red flag that you need to be using a boundary. You 100% should be using a boundary at that point. Like, that's your assignment. That is today's assignment. Do a tally and count out how many times you said, I'm sorry. What was the situation that you said, I'm sorry? What was going on? Pay attention. Put the comment below. Tell me how many times today you said sorry. Become mindful that every time you say sorry, you're saying, oh no, you can abuse me. It's okay. Please abuse me more. When you should be using a boundary. Narcissists have conditioned us to apologize when they abuse us. That's why we apologize. It's part of narcissistic abuse syndrome. It's part of perspective abuse. You apologize because, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm supposed to be your slave. That's right. Let me kneel and genuflect and lick your boots. That's right. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Yes, you may continue to abuse me. Please beat me. Or you can use a boundary and say, fuck off. Keep your projections off of me. You have no right telling me what you think. Keep your projections off of me. My perspective is my own. Respect my perspective. You need to not be intolerant to perspectives. Perspective intolerance. Perspective intolerance leads to perspective abuse. If you love shit like this, please like, subscribe, and comment below. If any part of this video resonated with you, comment below and donate. Help the garden grow. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.